Welcome to the 1310 podcast, where I have one guest. We ask them three questions and we try to accomplish it in 10 minutes. Today, we are very fortunate to have a 2007 graduate, Travis Stevens. Travis, welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Travis, before we get started, you want to give us a brief introduction? What year you graduated, who are some folks that you graduated with that our students may know, and what you're doing now?
So I graduated in 2007. I was pretty good friends with Coach Delman and Coach Nardo, who a lot of the students I'm sure know. Um, you know, so um, and after high school, I went on to Otterbein University, where I graduated there, and then went to optometry school in Indiana at IU, and I live in Indiana now. Been here since 2017, um, and so
So the national champion Indiana Hoosiers.
yeah.
But
Pretty.
are you still an Ohio State fan?
I am. I mean, it's pretty cool what the Hoosiers were able to do. It was pretty incredible. Quite a turnaround, really. But yeah, still a Buckeye at heart.
Well, let's dive into the question. So, you've built a successful career as an optometrist. Thinking back to your time at Union Local, was there a specific teacher or a science lab or a moment in the hallways that sparked your interest, that sparked your fire in wanting to work in the medical field, especially optometry?
So um, I'll get to the optometry part. It's kind of a roundabout way, but specifically at UL, I don't know if there was a moment in particular. I was always kind of a math and science guy, so I leaned, that way. I always enjoyed. I remember freshman year, Mr. Sobel's science class. He kept things interesting, and we had fun in there. And then Coach Smo, his chemistry class, I enjoyed a lot. Um, so those are kind of the ones that stand out as far as the science side. The medical field. Um, my mom was in the medical field. Several of my aunts, so that's kind of where I was sort of drawn to that a little bit. Um, and then interestingly enough, optometry. I get asked that a lot. Why did you get into optometry? And it's just kind of random. I was in college weighing my different options because I didn't actually know that's what I was planning to do until I was in college, and I started shadowing a friend of my mom's who's also a Union Local alumni, Dr. Beth Travis, and she works in the Columbus area in Upper Arlington. But I actually shadowed her a few times and ended up working for the same practice she worked at for a year as a technician there. Um, so that's, once I did that, that's what took me to that, to go down that path as far as optometry goes. So, sort of a roundabout way, but it
You
wasn't
never know
something.
where you end up, and I'm sure Coach Smo will enjoy and won't have a sarcastic comment at all.
Yeah, he kept things fun. I remember him, you know, lighting his arm on fire with the you know, um, whatever experiment that was. It was always a good time in there.
The insurance premiums are a little higher to keep Coach Smo around.
Yeah, exactly, right?
So, as a doctor, as an optometrist, I mean that's awesome. You're an expert on the eye, but you're also an expert in the realm of sports and having a good eye for that. So, aside from being a doctor, you officiate baseball, basketball, and football. Tell us a little bit about how you got into that. How do you have time for that as a doctor? And does the eye practice connect at all to what you do as an official?
Um, yeah, how I got into it, just kind of my dad was an official, so it was something that was kind of around growing up. And when I moved out here to Indiana, um, at first, I had some time, extra time, didn't have any kids, and um, it was something that helps you stay around the game. And so I kind of got into it, and then one sport led to another and then to another. So that's kind of how I just it's a good way to stay close to the game and I've always enjoyed high school sports and, you know, played high school sports, obviously, so it's helpful to stay around it. Um, and it's a good way to do that. And I have a lot of fun with it. Um, Optometry, what's one of the reasons I got into optometry really, and why it kind of, um, was at the kind of the top of my list of things to do is because it's a very flexible profession. And I'm lucky enough to work for a flexible practice who lets me kind of, take the time to do it when I need to, and that's one thing to, keep in mind, some of the students, I tell people, it's definitely, when I get asked, what's some of the, pros and cons of optometry, and I think that's one thing, you typically can have some flexibility with your schedule and this or that that allows you to do some of those things, allows you to have, it's very family friendly, to where you have that time to, to enjoy doing things outside of work,
As a doctor of the eyes, do you ever find it ironic when somebody might make a joke about you needing glasses when you're umpiring baseball?
Yeah, yeah, I hear a lot about it, out here, when I go to do games and, and people ask, hey, I hear you're an eye doctor, and I've been thinking I need to find a good comeback line, in case people start, giving me a hard time, about some of the calls I make,
Well, maybe tell them to come visit your practice because obviously they can't see it as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I thought about just carrying around some business cards and passing them out, as needed,
Hey, expand the business while you're officiating.
Right,
So
right.
you mentioned you played sports in high school. What sports did you play, and did that help you lead? Did that help lead you to, Otterbein, where you went to school and actually played college sports?
Yeah, yeah. So I played baseball and basketball all 4 years in high school. Um, and when I was in high school, Otterbein had a really good baseball program, and um, so it was definitely one that I was paying close attention to. And I went and visited there, and and they had good science background. And so and they were actually, when I was there, they built a brand new, science building while I was in school, and it was in progress, before I was going there. Um, so yeah, as far as what my major was, it was something that fit right, and it was, and I enjoyed it. It's kind of, close to Columbus, so there was a lot to do, but you kind of had that small town feel in Westerville there at Otterbein.
That's what I think about with your journey and a lot of students' journeys who go on to be successful. People will say, well, you're not going to go on to play professionally, so why do you do it? For myself, I went to Mount Union and started playing football there. Didn't finish playing football there, but it kind of led me to my career. You loved, baseball. It led to college, which led to being an optometrist, and it fuels what you do now, officiating basketball, football, and baseball. So just because there might not be a path to make a living out of it, you can make a life out of something you love.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think there's a lot of, you got to find something you enjoy to do like that, and outside of work. Um, everybody finds, or you hear a lot of people say, you know, find a job you love to do, and I love my job, but I also, outside of work, I love, the other things that I can do as far as officiating, um, and people ask, high school officiating high school sports, you don't do it for the money because it's not bad. It's nice extra money to have for sure. Um, but you can't live on that, um, so you do it because you enjoy it, and we joke about that sometimes as officials, because we enjoy what we do. Um, and I'm lucky to have, like I said, a job and a family, my wife who supports me in doing that and lets me take that extra time to get to enjoy all that.
I give you a lot of credit for doing it because you might love it, but you're also giving back to the coaches and the community and the kids. And sometimes when you have a great career, like an optometrist, you don't always want to humble yourself to being sometimes yelled at the game. But I think it takes a special level of professionalism to handle crowd control too. So, last question I have for you. You live in Indiana. You said you're about an hour north of Indianapolis, and you're from the Ohio Valley. You're from Belmont County. So, when you bump into people in Indiana and you try to explain where you're from, I'm from here as well. Sometimes you have to really narrow it down so they can find it on a map. How do you explain where you're from and why you're proud to be from here and what this area taught you?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Where I live now, it's very similar, as far as the size of the towns, and I jokingly say sometimes that it's very much the same. It's just a lot flatter here. Just imagine here with more hills and valleys. That's where I grew up. But yeah, sometimes it can be hard to describe where it's at. Um, but no, I think the area, the quality of people, I'm, at Union Local specifically, um, the relationships I built there. I was just back this weekend and, um, you see people you haven't seen in quite a while, but it's like you never left, you see people and you're able to just pick up right where you left off. And, um, that's what I enjoy about getting back there. And I'm lucky to be able to come back, a fair amount, visit family and friends, um, but it's a great place to get back to for sure.
Well, anytime you're back, let me know, and we'll have you talk to our students, maybe bring you back for a career day, and
Sure.
maybe have you officiate an intramural game or something like that. You can help us
There
out
you
in a
go.
variety of areas.
Yes, for
Tra-
sure, for sure.
Travis, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Any parting message or anything you'd like to leave our students or our staff with? Anybody you'd like to speak directly to and let them know what you think about Union Local?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of the um, staff and teachers that I had in school. Some are still there, some have moved on, but no, I enjoyed my time at Union Local. It was a great experience, and then, like I said, anytime I can, come back and watch, especially, with, I have a lot of family still in the school system. So I try to get back and watch some of the sporting events and such there. And I always enjoy, seeing the people and getting back there.
Well, you're always welcome, Travis, and really great to bump into you at the game and have you on the podcast. And if anybody out there knows someone who graduated from Union Local and is out doing great things and representing the Jets well, please reach out to me and we'll get you on the podcast. Jets think, Jets care, Jets aim high. Go Jets.